Welcome to The Passion Pod with your host, Chris Johnson. Thanks for joining us. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the feature presentation.
Season 7, Episode 5.
Welcome back, friends. Today we're in Hollywood, California with a dancer nearly everyone has seen from one video or another. Originally from the Bay Area, she's traveled all over creating content, teaching classes, and doing all kinds of stuff. So welcome to the show, dancer, teacher, actor, artist, Courtney Sanderson.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be able to talk to you.
Yeah, this is great. I'm super excited that you agreed to meet me, even though I texted you yesterday through somebody else that I just met. So it's funny how LA works that way, where it's like, anyone have time? Oh, surprisingly, you have an hour, even though you're busy as hell? Dope. Worked out.
Yeah.
So who are you and what are you passionate about?
I am Courtney Sanderson, and I'm passionate about dancing. I love fitness, and I actually just started my music career as well.
And you grew up doing gymnastics, right? Are you still doing gymnastic stuff?
I still do gymnastics, but it's not as consistent as I would like it to be. But I just moved out here a week ago, and I'm going to find another gym, even though I do have one. I'd like to find another gym that I can be consistent with and go back to doing gymnastics on the regular basis.
Yeah, well, we'll get to what really made you famous. And gymnastics, obviously, you kind of had to have that to get there. But anyway, so How can people best follow you and get in contact? They're going to listen to the episode and they're going to go, I want to know more about Courtney.
So my Instagram and TikTok are actually the same social media handles. It's at I am Courtney Sanderson, IAMCOURTNEYSANDERSON. And then I also have a YouTube. Twitter and Snapchat are the same. So that's going to be COURTNEY 13_SA.
Are you ever going to change that handle to match the other ones?
I would love to. I wish I could, but Twitter and Snapchat don't let me do that.
Oh.
So they're stuck like that forever.
Yeah, see, Passion Pod, like how it is right now, was already taken when I started my show.
Yeah.
So I had Passion_pod, and I'd been trying to just get the handle Passion, because that's like the name of my brand. So my store is called Passion Board Shop, or the show is called Passion Pod. So my brand is Passion, and I have apparel and stuff that I sell.
Yeah.
Been trying to get that forever, and that handle is totally gone now, because whoever had it was trying to peddle it, and Instagram deleted it. So I need to reach out and be like, how can I get this? But anyways, I ended up buying the handle Passion Pod without the little underscore from some dude in India, of course. But I ended up making it happen this past winter, and I was overly excited about it because the underscore made it really difficult to explain to people how to find it, more so than it should have been.
Exactly. That's what they tell influencers, is that you don't want to have underscores or dots or numbers in your handle, so that it's easier for people to find you. And I actually just was able to finally change my handle after 13 years, because I've had it as @_Courtney_Sanderson for the longest time, and I wanted to get my actual username, Courtney Sanderson, but some girl blocked me on 4 different accounts. I reached out to her. I was like, hey, I'm willing to buy your username, because it would really help out my brand, instead of having people type in a bunch of underscores. And she blocked me, and then I even reached out for my friends' accounts, blocked still, so I was like, wow. She had 86 followers, so I was like, obviously my account would really help and grow if I could have my name Courtney Sanderson.
And you're clearly it's not that important to you to have this.
Exactly.
I think that's interesting. There's somebody, I was wondering the other day, just out of curiosity, and we're not going to get into politics, but out of curiosity, I was like, why is Donald Trump real Donald Trump instead of just Donald Trump? Because this dude has enough money to get anything he wants, and enough power to get anything he wants. And I looked up what the handle on Instagram was for Donald Trump. Have you ever seen it?
No.
It's like a anime girl with a unicorn
Oh my gosh.
horn, and I'm just sitting there.
She doesn't want to give it up.
Well, clearly it's just a joke.
Yeah.
But the cool part is, thinking about it, I'm like, whoever is trolling Donald Trump is probably turning down a ton of money just to troll him, and I appreciate whoever you are, because that's hilarious.
Really funny. Yeah. It's really frustrating, because I'm like, what is your 86 followers,
Yeah. It's just it's frustrating because this is your career. That person doesn't have a real reason why it matters that much. So it's it would be nice if you get it. Anyways, so when you go out, you go wherever, and people don't immediately know who you are, because it doesn't kind of matter at this point how big your social media following is. Still, most people don't know who you are usually, right? People always ask the same question, what do you do? It's kind of hard when you work for yourself, because you do a lot of Like you can't really do one thing and make like a living. It's hard to do. So what is your
Yeah.
answer when somebody asks you, what do you do?
I would say I'm a dancer, but I also like tumble and do gymnastics and coach and teach twerk classes. So like as a short answer, I would just say I'm a dancer. And then if we keep talking, then I would say I also teach twerk classes too, you know? And then I just started the music thing, so I wouldn't really say that yet, you know, to like the normal person that would ask me on the street or something. I haven't really like mentioned that yet.
Yeah, the music thing takes a while sometimes. You know,
Exactly.
like it's obviously helpful if you have a platform already, you know, because then you can get it in front of people in the first place, which is a lot of
Yeah.
the hard thing. Because I have a lot of friends back home, several in particular, that are like incredibly talented, right? There's a lot of talented people, but incredibly talented, but they don't have a platform to get it to people in the first place. Anyone I've shown their music to is like, damn, this person's really good. I'm like, no, but nobody knows because they don't have a
Yeah.
platform. So it's nice that you already have a platform, but still, sometimes it takes a little while. So I mean, cheers
Yeah.
to you for kind of going that direction. It takes
Thank
some
you.
like, you're putting yourself in a different kind of vulnerability
Exactly.
when you're like successful at one thing and you're like, I know that I could take a ton of criticism and not everyone's gonna like this, but I'm gonna put myself out there anyways.
Yep.
Like that's a hard trigger to like actually
It took
pull.
me like years, even just because I've wanted to do it for so long, but I finally got the confidence to do it after like a long time, you know?
Yeah. Well, clearly, like, you're not that afraid to be in front of people. So you started doing gymnastics at what age?
3.
Okay, so from a really young age. So I've been alluding to, like, this is what you do, whatever. So what you're most famous for, what everything popped off, like, on the highest level anyways, was in the Baby's music video, Bop. You're the one who's, like, handstand twerking, right? That's not something most people can do, even if, like, you know how to twerk. You can't, like, stand on your hands comfortably in that way. So clearly, like, it had to come from somewhere. So you did
Yeah.
gymnastics for years and years and years. Were you doing, like, competitions and stuff?
Yes.
Okay, so how young were you when you were in front of people doing like competitions and stuff like
Like
that?
7. We would have exhibitions, and then every weekend during competitive season, we would have a competition on like Saturday or Sunday and travel. And I got to travel like when I want to say 12 or 13 to like Hawaii and Disneyland and Arizona, all over the place just for competitions.
And
it was really
so
cool.
when obviously you got really good at it.
Thanks.
Sometimes like that's like the coach parent like thing bleeding through, and then their kid gets kind of sick of it, because you see that in the skateboarding world. You see it in everywhere, but I'm primarily from the skateboarding world, right? That's where a lot of my experiences come from.
Yeah.
I see kids that are like crazy good when they're like 12, but then by the time they're like 16, they don't even want to do it, even though they're really good, because it was like too much pressure being put on them.
Oh,
Why
wow.
did you like transition away from doing gymnastics into, because you did like other school sports and stuff then near the end, right? But what made you
did.
kind of slow down on doing the gymnastics route?
I slowed down on it because I did want to venture off and do other sports like cheer, and I've always wanted to do cheer, but I do want to touch on the fact that you said the coach parent thing, which is very different for me because I never had anybody like pressuring me to do it. It was always a dream of mine from myself, and I pushed so hard just to go to practice every day. And mind you, we had practices for like 5 hours a day, 5 days a week. So I was probably I considered myself really dedicated to the sport. And so my punishment, like, you know, my friends or my teammates on the team, if they got in trouble, you know, it was like, you know, the coach parent thing, and I could tell because like they didn't really want to be there, but they still had to be there. But for me, on the other hand, if I got in trouble, my punishment was to actually like miss a day of practice, and that was like the worst punishment ever, because I would like throw a whole fit, you know, and be like, no, like, there's no way I can't miss a day of practice. Like, that's so important to me. Like, I skipped Disneyland. My family went on a trip to Disneyland. They wanted me to come. They went to camping, birthday parties, but I would not go just because I could not miss like a day of practice. It was so important to me.
So what was it about it that you enjoyed so much that you kind of put that before social interactions?
Like the long-term goal, because I was always just so goal-orientated with it that I wanted to go to the Olympics, and I couldn't miss a single day of practice. So I missed a lot of like social gatherings
Sure.
for that. So yeah.
So at some point, all of a sudden, because gymnastics, like they're all like 16, right, when they're in the Olympics. So at some point, you're like, okay, well, the Olympics isn't going to happen regardless of the fact that I'm really good. Was that when you started then transitioning into doing
Yeah,
other
that's
things?
what I was getting into, because my coaches didn't really believe in me, and they were telling me that I was too old for it. And after like a really long time of, debating that, because it's my whole life, ever since I was 3 years old, all I wanted to do is just do that. So like realizing the fact that I am too old for it, but there's still option. Like you could still do the same level of gymnastics in college, but college just wasn't like the big, it wasn't like a very appealing thing to me to just be a college gymnast in college.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, so it comes from the same thing as skateboarding, right? So again, like I didn't put in 5 hours a day. So I was never like gonna be crazy good. And I'm from Wisconsin, where we didn't have an indoor skate park. So all winter long you couldn't skate. So realistically,
you could still be good though.
Okay. But in comparison to kids growing out here in the industry, really, really, really rare for somebody from my zone to like make it, because the tools aren't really there. It's just kind of hard to do that. There's no industry there. You tend to elevate yourself to be the people around you, right? Surround yourself with people who are better than you, and you end up being better because you're skating with those people or doing gymnastics with those people. And when you have these facilities and you have these professionals around you, you start to realize, hey, that's attainable, and you work towards that.
Yeah.
When none of those things are around, it is possible, but it's just hard to do. So when I was growing up, at some point I realized, like, okay, yeah, that's very obvious that like I'm not going to be pro. However, I started to figure out, like, okay, what can I do to still be involved in the industry? I had to switch my mindset on what I wanted to do, because I wasn't going to be a pro skateboarder. Could I still skateboard? Yes, and I still did. But my goals changed a little bit. So I ended up going through different sales type positions. I knew I wanted to like do something with people. And I had all these like existential things. My parents split up. My dad almost died. I had my first kid. I had all these things, and I was like, so what do I really want out of life? And that's when I was like, well, I've always wanted to own a skateboard shop. Like, I don't know why I'm not doing that. I should just do that. So I opened that when I was 23, but that was kind of the direction. How come you were doing gymnastics so heavily, realized you weren't going to like be in the Olympics? How come you didn't just stay in the gymnastics realm? I mean, you kind of did, I guess, right? Cheer and stuff is similar.
It is similar. That's why I love to do that, and I've always wanted to. And being with gymnastics, it's your entire schedule. Like I said, all day, 25 hours a week. You don't have any time to do anything else. And it's not that I like wanted to do, have time to myself, because I love being busy. So if I do have time to myself, like, I'll get unhappy. But I wanted to do cheer really bad, and then I know back during that time somebody was telling me that like even cheer was going to become an Olympic sport, and I think now it is, actually. So I was thinking of going like a different route. It's like, what's my other route to get into the Olympics,
Sure.
And so just started that. But cheer in high school was really not a competitive thing at all. So I added on to myself. I did lacrosse for like exercise, because cheer was not giving me enough, So I did cheer, and then lacrosse, and then I did competition cheer at night, so that I would also have like all the experience I needed.
Sure. Know? So at some point then, like 18, somewhere around there, you start thinking college, right?
Yes.
Because like the transition in your mind was like, okay, well, this isn't exactly what I'm going to do forever. And obviously at that age, nobody really knows what they're going to do forever. Why'd you go to college then?
I mean, that's a good question. I wanted to go to college because that was the thing to do.
Yeah.
So I always thought that I was going to be in like an Ivy League school. I had a 4.0 GPA growing up, and I always like tried to maintain that through middle school and high school. So that was just a goal of mine, to like cheer on a D1 team. So that's when I applied to a bunch of like Ivy League schools, Cal Berkeley, even though I was going to gymnastics at Cal Berkeley already. Didn't help me get in. I tried to get into UCLA. I didn't get in there, and then I wound up going to UH.
Yeah, out in Hawaii, which is super, super cool.
Yeah.
So you were doing dancing and cheering, so you already knew how to move around. Like, you already got that.
Yeah.
At the time, like, twerking is like its own like beast. But when you started doing that, I know, like, I've listened to it. You've done some, like, had viral videos and stuff like that come up. Were you like purposely really trying to get good at that at the time, or was that like a party trick kind of a thing that was like, oh, I'm really good at this, I guess I'll run with it?
It was kind of fun. Like, throughout high school, when I first started going to parties, I could see, like, I still have the videos. I'm like, wow, I really didn't know what I was doing at all, Yeah. And then in college is when I was like, oh, maybe I should take this a little bit more seriously, because I saw that City Girls Twerk Challenge for $25K, and I was like, wow, like, what if I had $25K to help me pay for my college? That would help for the next 4 years or something. So that's when I was like, okay, I'm actually gonna practice this and see how it goes, because I want to win a twerk competition one day or something, So yeah.
So doing gymnastics and doing everything you do, you built up a very competitive spirit, right? How is that translated into what you do?
Well, I've always had like a competitive spirit, I guess,
Yeah.
throughout my whole life. So I think it's already kind of there.
Is it more so like internally? Because that's how I am. I'm not really competitive with other people, but it's more like I think I'm capable of whatever. So I set a certain bar and then
Oh,
I'm like
yeah,
kind of
exactly.
almost to a fault, tear myself down until I reach this like goal. And then I don't celebrate the goals nearly as good, like as much as I should either. I'm really bad about that. I just like,
it's exactly the same because
Yeah.
it's all inside. It's all in my head. You know, I'm like, well, I have to do better than this, and you know, I kind of set myself on a time limit, and I kind of rush things because I'm like, oh, I don't have enough time. I have to make sure I'm good at this by a certain time, and it's like because I feel like I'm gonna, you know, just get too old or something, and I have to like do it right now, and I just stress myself out for no reason because, you know, like it's all up to me. So
Yeah.
it's my thing, and I have to compete with myself a lot. So yeah, I do go back and forth in my head
Yeah.
way too much.
yeah. Well, and I think
But-
there's like so much more potential too than like what you're currently doing. People like tend to want to put somebody in a box and they want to say, well, this person is good at this thing. When
Yeah.
really they're capable of a lot. And the beauty of the social media world is anyone who's like an influencer, you're basically an entrepreneur of your own personal branding. Even if you don't sell your own apparel, you're still kind of like building your own TV channel, like if you
Yeah.
want to look at it that way, which is like a form of entrepreneurship. But one important thing to remember is like, yes, you have people who are following you for X, Y, or Z, but you can go in another direction and the majority of those people are going to follow.
Yep.
You know what I mean? They're just going to keep following along for the ride. So you can look at it as an idea of like, well, there's like a certain window of time that you can be doing what you're currently doing, which is
Yeah.
true. However, you can just continue to build who you are and what relationship you have with people. And you like paint and do other stuff. There's no reason why you can't just go in that direction at any point in time if that's what was like calling to you. You know what I mean? So how do you
Exactly.
spend your free time now? Do you still paint and stuff?
I haven't been able to. I actually, because I just moved, and then also my other living situation, I just didn't have the resources. And it's all about, you know, it's up to me. Like, I just have to go and take the time so that I do have the resources, and then I'll be able to be more free and be able to do that, which I really want to do. And I'm glad you brought that up because that's something that I really love to do. And I think that would just help me, like, mentally just take some time away from, like, being on my phone all day, just answering messages. I go through, I try to, like, read all of them and respond to everyone, which is really difficult because there's a lot. And I just want to be, like, a humble person and be able to, like, know that people can just reach out to me and talk to me. But it's really hard when it's just, you know, useless information. So
Yeah.
I want to be there and be able to talk to everybody, but I would love to just take a step back and be able to, like, you know, just have time to myself and actually get back to drawing. Or if there's like ceramics classes out here, I'm going to try to find them so I can take one because it's like really, what's the word? Like soothing or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah, it calls to you in a certain kind of way that it's not necessarily a career thing, but it more just like means something to you.
Yeah. But then, like you said, spending my free time, most of the time I just go to the gym or make TikToks, and I like to cook. So, yeah.
So
for
I
now.
want to ask this because I'm like relatively new to even having any, and I don't have notoriety, but I have more than I used to within my little space or whatever. The bigger that you get, the more you put yourself out there socially. It sounds great to have a bunch of people following what you do. Like that's like you look up to people when you're a kid saying like, oh, wow, that's so awesome. But what I've found is it just like really opens you up to criticism, which
Yep.
is really, really difficult for me personally because I hate conflict. Like I
Yeah.
try to resolve any kind, I don't avoid it, but I try very hard to have it not happen. And when it does happen, I try to just clear it up right away because I really struggle with people that just like, for whatever reason, you don't have to love me, but I have a hard time if somebody like really doesn't like me for some reason.
Yeah,
I'm
or,
like
like,
confused. I don't get it.
disrespects
I'm
you.
like, why do you hate me so much? Can I fix this? Like, what do I got to do to fix it? Because it like bothers me.
It's annoying. Yeah.
Yeah. So what is it? How have you figured out what practices, what advice can you give? You know, because the obvious thing is like, don't even listen to haters. That's fine, but
Yeah.
it gets to you personally. So
It
how have
does.
you been able to like manage that? What advice can you give to people?
Yeah, I would definitely say, because like the first year it was really frustrating, and I was like, it just kind of like tears you apart inside, even though you can be all happy on the outside and you're just, but you still have those comments. And even though people tell you, just ignore it. It's like, you still read it, you still get the notification, and it still bothers you. And I do have a lot of friends that will respond to them, you know, and I completely just put a wall up. So anytime somebody says something to me, because there's a lot, so I completely just am able to like put a wall up now and completely ignore it. But I'm not going to say it was easy. And I know a lot of people tell me like, at the beginning, just ignore it. But after a while and you keep seeing it, and it's like, you know what, these people have nothing to do with me. They probably just are jealous, or they like something that I'm doing and they just can't do it. So they're mad, and that's why they hate me so much. But I mean, honestly, they're not doing anything for me. So why should I even put any time or effort into them? You know?
Yeah, I read a book. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're good.
It's along the same lines, but I read this book called The Four Agreements. Are you familiar with it?
I haven't.
Super famous book. It's only like 100-some pages. You'd appreciate it. I think you should definitely check it out when
I
you
would
have
love
a
to.
plane ride or some time to waste 2 hours of time.
Yeah, I would love
Anyways,
to.
it's basically like how to unlock like your best version of yourself. Tom Brady like studies this book is like a whole thing. It's like really famous. So one of the four agreements is not taking anything personally ever. Like not good things, not bad things. Just don't take anything personally that anyone ever says. Because realistically, there's some reason, and it's not you,
Yeah.
that is causing them to say that. Even when I show up and I'm like, oh my God, today is beautiful.
Yeah.
You can take that, and it's awesome if you take it as like, hey, I'm part of the reason he's saying this. But there's a lot of factors, right? It's not because of you. Therefore, if I came in and I was in a bad mood, it's not because of you either, right?
Yeah.
Like there's all these other things affecting other people, and if they're in a bad mood, it's not your fault. You know what I mean? As long as you're putting out positive energy out to the world,
Exactly.
not everyone's going to like you, but it's probably not even about you. It's probably about them. They had a bad day for whatever reason, or whatever you did brought up a different memory of the past related to something else, and it has nothing to do with you. I think you get desensitized to things over time, and I'm hoping eventually I'll get desensitized to that. I'm just like not used to it.
Yeah.
So even like snide comments, I'm like, I think this person doesn't like me, but I'm not sure, but it's
Yeah.
bothering me today. I'm
it
like, I'm
does.
trying to get better at it.
I know it bothers people, but I just tell them, you just have to, what are they doing for you except for they're giving you more views and they're commenting on your stuff. So I won't even I'm so immune to it now that like you're commenting and you're just going to keep blowing up my video because you're commenting. So I really don't care at this point.
Sure. So when did you start so you teach twerking classes, which I didn't realize was a thing because
Yeah.
again, I'm from Wisconsin. I don't think they exist there. But when did you have the idea that like you could teach this and that could be another revenue stream?
Actually, before I was even in the music video bop, I've always wanted to teach my own twerk classes since I started probably after college, I would say. And I realized it was a thing when I saw videos on Instagram of people teaching these twerk classes. And I was like, this would be so much fun, for me to just do and get started on. So I really enjoy it now because I've been saying it for a couple of years, like, oh, I really want to get started. I really want to do that. And then quarantine happened, but now I'm able to finally do what I want to do,
Yeah. Well, and it's connecting people over something you both enjoy. And I'm sure it's fun.
Yeah.
Like it looks like a lot of,
It's
why wouldn't it be
actually a lot
fun?
of fun.
Yeah.
I really love it. So
Yeah.
it makes me happy. And
Well,
I'm
I mean, I
really
just
glad.
think about going out and dancing in general, and everyone tries to twerk throughout the evening. I'm guilty of it too because it's
Yeah.
funny. I don't know. I think it's a good time.
And I love empowering women because
Yeah.
the girls that come, they could be of all ages, all sizes, it doesn't matter. Even guys too, if they want to come, but it's all just positive energy, and that's what I love about it.
Yeah. Well, everyone's just being accepting and nice.
Exactly. Yeah. It's not like you go to a club and you might feel uncomfortable dancing. It's like we came here to dance. You're gonna dance, so everybody's dancing, and it's just fun.
And it takes a certain kind of skill, person to be that. And that's the funny part is as you get better at whatever your career path is, everything that you did before that was a stepping stone in some kind of way, right? And even just gymnastics, back when you were 7, you had to be in front of people watching you.
Yep.
That helped build you up for teaching twerking classes all
Yeah.
these years later. Without really thinking about it, it's oh, but all these things really do line up. It's the same way with
Exactly.
this show. I've been in sales since I was 16. So I've learned how to talk to different people, even when they're really uncomfortable. Because I sold jewelry and stuff for a while. So I'd have guys come in really uncomfortable to be there. And I, over
Yeah.
time, developed a skill set to be able to talk to kind of whoever and read people. And that translated into me interviewing people all over the country.
Yeah,
Which is
for
dope.
sure.
And it was not the intention at the time. But it's cool that it ended up working that way. So one thing that happens with a lot of people, I don't know if you're guilty of this, I'm guilty of this, is we have imposter syndrome, right? That's a whole thing. Have you ever heard of imposter syndrome?
I think so.
Okay, so imposter syndrome is when you are doing something and you are succeeding, but for whatever reason, you still feel like you're not. like you shouldn't actually be there. Like you
Okay.
just got a little lucky. I don't understand how I'm actually here. Am I really that good at it? Like that's a thing that happens with a lot of people. It's like
Okay.
they should be significantly more confident than they are because they did earn it and they did get there, but for whatever reason they still are kind of like do you understand what I'm talking about?
That makes sense.
Yeah, so at some point, usually, people have a moment, right, throughout their career at any given time or multiple ones. At some point, they have a moment where they're like, wait a second, I really belong here. This feels right, and I'm really stoked on it. And it's a really high that you feel.
Yeah.
Have you had one of those moments? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Okay, can you share one?
So my second to last twerk class, I would say in Vegas in July, was a really high for me. Even though this is something I've been saying for years I want to do and I love it. But after teaching that class, that's when I just felt like the happiest I felt in a really long time. Like being able to bring out girls and have them all everyone has smiles on their faces. That's what makes me really happy. And then just seeing everybody have a good time and just the class went so well. And this is, just me starting, I'm just getting started with these classes. So that was a really good feeling for me. Like, wow, after all this time, I can really finally do what I said I was going to do. And it's making me really happy. So
It's such a fulfilling feeling that is one of the main reasons that I work for myself and why I talk to people like you, right? Is because if you're in a traditional career path, a lot of people never really get to have that feeling because they don't have much emotion into what they're doing. Like they're working hard, they want to get promoted and whatever, and that's totally fine, but they aren't so emotionally invested, therefore they don't reap the same kind of reward either. So that's why I always like to share more stories about that because it listening to you talk about that makes me feel good. I think back on different memories of mine where I threw a skateboard contest and I'm on a mic and everyone's looking at me and everyone's happy and parents are coming to thank me afterwards and I'm like, this is so sick. I remember going to skate contests as a kid thinking it was the coolest thing and now I'm the one throwing it.
that's so
dope.
cool.
Yeah.
That's such a good feeling.
Yeah, it's incredible. So I actually didn't come to California for the first time until last year. Or,
Oh, really?
I guess a year and a half ago, right before the pandemic. I came to California for the first time at the age of 29.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I went. So my sister lives up an hour-ish drive south of San Francisco.
Okay.
In Mountain View. So I went and visited her. Went up to San Francisco for the day. Did an interview there. Went over to Santa Cruz. Came down to LA. Kind of did a whole little tour for my show, and that was for season 2. So it was right at the beginning. And then the pandemic hit, and I ended up just interviewing people around my area because I couldn't go anywhere, which is great.
Yeah.
But my show's not about any individual place. So I kind of want to go a lot of places. I'm finding myself coming out to LA a lot simply because there's a lot of creative people in one place, and most of the people here aren't from here anyways. So it's just kind of the easiest way to get work done. But anyways, California's great. The Bay Area is beautiful, specifically the trees and stuff. I went and saw the redwoods.
Yeah.
But San Francisco is super sketchy.
Yes.
I don't know. I had kind of a weird experience right away when I got there. And I'm used to the Midwest nice where everywhere you go, people are just polite. And there, here's the brief story. There, I got dropped off by my brother-in-law right off Market Street. And within 2 or 3 minutes, I just hear from behind me, hey, yo, bitch.
Oh.
And I was like, what? They're not talking to me, I don't think. So I keep walking. And again, I hear this girl yell, yeah, you. And I'm
Oh
like,
my gosh.
huh? And I turn around and look at her and she's like, I'm talking to you. And I was like, oh. So I just kept walking. She's like, yeah, walk away. And I was
Oh my gosh.
what just happened to me? Because I'm, again, I'm 6'1", heavily tattooed. I'm not usually the person people pick on. I don't I've never been in a fight, so I would lose anyways. But people, I think, don't approach me normally like that. So coming out here is super strange to me that those interactions happen at all. You know what I mean? Do you think that
It's very normal.
Do you think that helped you a little bit as far as criticism and dealing with people? You know what I mean? Different types of people.
Yeah, growing up in the Bay Area, I'm very used to just all that's very normal to me. I see it all the time. People, my family and I, we gave a homeless person $5 on the street, and then he asked for $5 more. So it's just just the way people talk to each other, and Yeah, it's just different.
Yeah, it's
And people aren't
strange.
really used to that. If you're from like another state or something, I've never been to Wisconsin. I don't know what it's like, but
Oh, it's incredible, which is why I still live there, and I'm going to continue to live there. If you ever have a chance, the whole northern half of the state, they talk about Minnesota as the land of 10,000 lakes, but we have over 15,000 in Wisconsin. It's
Whoa.
like all forests and lakes everywhere up north, and it's absolutely beautiful.
That's
If you ever go
crazy.
up to like the tip, Bayfield, Wisconsin, off of that are the Apostle Islands, namely Madeline Island, and you can take a ferry over there, and you can go camping and ride bikes around, and it's just
Wow.
like you can kayak through all the caves. It's
that sounds really beautiful.
really, really cool, not expensive. And yeah, so if you ever just need like a cool getaway, I highly suggest checking that out. You can hit me up and I'll tell you exactly where to go.
Thank you. I'd love to go.
So on the trajectory of your career, this is where I'm at. So I opened my shop, I'm 5 years in, and I'm like, okay, I did what I set out to do. Now I just want this place to kind of last for a long period of time. I want this to be like the cool, safe clubhouse for kids to like kind of grow up at and like get advice from the older skaters, and I'll be there as much as possible. But I'm transitioning into hopefully inspiring people with this show, you know, as well as doing my store, growing a brand. I'm in a place where like I got divorced and now I have to make enough money to like pay for my kids and my family, like all my stuff off one income. So I'm kind of
sorry to
forcing
hear that.
myself. It's okay, life goes on, but I'm kind of forcing myself that I kind of have to make more money. And I've never been a money-oriented person at all. Like
Yeah.
it just didn't matter to me because where I live is cheap and off 2 incomes, like we could just make it fine. Now I have to make it by myself, so there's a little bit more like energy going into, okay, how do I build this brand and stuff so that way it can financially like support me a little bit more.
Yeah.
I envision this show being massive. And I really think it will be because I am really good at just talking to people. There's
Yeah.
like, I know I can do this. If I just continue to talk to other people, I'll get introduced to more people. And eventually it takes time. I don't see a reason why the show can't just be like huge. I
Yeah, I think
totally
you're really good
envision
at
it
it.
could be. Well, thank you so much. So along your trajectory of your career, you did gymnastics, you were doing cheering, you blew up and went viral on the internet through twerking, we're in music videos all over the place. Now you're starting to release music, teaching classes. Obviously at some point you want to paint and do other things. Where are you within the trajectory of your career? What do you kind of envision for yourself?
I envision myself like I always say that I'm still at the beginning because I think there's a long way to go, you know, and I still want to keep growing and just keep going to the top. So I'm just going to keep working as hard as I can and keep going so that I can get there.
Yeah, and a lot of it, I think, like we kind of alluded to before, was building up kind of a brand behind what you do, right? So that way, kind of whatever your interests are in that moment, whatever opportunities are popping up, you can have a lane to go with that.
Exactly.
How are you kind of building that brand? What are you building it around? Do you have like a name for it? Is it just
Yeah.
your name itself? Are you doing merch? Like,
Exactly. Yeah. So I actually just got my website up yesterday, and I've been working with We Fix Brands in Vegas, and they helped me with the whole website. And then my merch started about a couple months ago. So whenever they're done, they said it would take them about 3 months. And so I hired some people to help me out with that. And so I will be coming out with twerk sets, like little twerk shorts with the matching top. So I'm like really excited for that. And they said it would take about 3 months. So I'm really excited for that. And then once that comes out, I'll have like, you know, they can just buy it straight from my website, and all my classes are linked on my website too. So I'm just really excited for that.
yeah, that's awesome that you like found a little niche like
Yeah.
that to capitalize in the skateboarding world. And I know I keep coming back to that, and you're not super familiar with it, but one of my like all-time heroes is Andrew Reynolds. He owns this company called Baker, and you've probably heard of Baker Skateboards. It's like a massive brand, right? So I was listening to him, and he was talking about different pros on his team. How one in particular was kind of known as the guy who did this one specific trick.
Okay.
And that guy was talking to him about like, God, I'm so sick of doing that at every demo everywhere we go.
Oh.
You know, like I don't want to be known for that one thing. But Andrew made a really good point on it. He said, you know, people who stand out though, it usually is because they have that one thing. It doesn't mean they can't do other things. But dude, if people are paying attention to you for something, like capitalize on it for as
Yes.
long as possible. Because why not? You know what I mean? Even if you're getting a little bit like, I've done this a lot. People are
Yeah.
loving it. Just enjoy it. Like enjoy the ride. So the fact you found something such as like twerking to be the thing that like really takes you to that level is kind of dope. And like keep doing it until it's not a thing, I guess. You know what I
Exactly,
mean? Why
like-
not take advantage?
It's still fun, and I love doing it. So I don't really have a problem doing it all the time, you know?
It looks incredibly fun on stages when you're handstand
Yeah.
walking around during people's shows. So
It's fun, and I still every few minutes every time I perform, there's a whole reaction as if they still don't know me. So in person, you know, like I mean, over 400 million people have seen that video, and still every time I go perform, there's still a whole crowd of people who are like, wow, I didn't even know that was you. I didn't know your name. I've been searching for you ever since that video. Like, there's a whole crowd of people every time. They still don't know who I am. So I could still, keep growing off of that, because there's so many people that still, I think, that are wondering, like, who's that girl? We never saw her face or anything like that.
Yeah, it's still going to shock people because, like, to be frank, we don't have the same 5 channels. When our parents were growing up, I imagine I'm a little bit older than you, but when our parents were growing up, there was like 5 channels. That was it. So everyone saw the same people on the same handful of channels. Those were the names. Those were the faces everyone recognized. Nowadays, there's so many media outlets. Even if 400 million views on something has happened, that doesn't mean people are going to recognize you, because they see so much content literally all the time.
Exactly.
So if they've never seen you in person, there's still all that room. There's no, you don't hit a ceiling with these types of things. That doesn't exist. So
yeah, and that's the thing, is people think, they're like, oh, well, I see you just did that in person, but are you really her? Like, are you really that girl? And it's like, yes, that is me. Not yet. There is just me. I'm doing that all over the country, I've made appearances in a lot of places, but it's the same girl,
Well, that specific thing, like I said, it's because you come from a gymnastics background. Very few people can just like walk around with their hands and multitask. It's just like not a common skill that people can do. So I always like to as we get near the end of the show, I like to share a couple experiences, because when you do things that you really care about, or in general, like live a unique lifestyle, you get to have a lot of really cool moments other people wouldn't have, because it wouldn't happen to you in like a regular job, right? So can you share an experience with us, something you're really grateful for, but it only happened because you chose the route that you did?
Yes. So there was one time in college, and this is like the moment I realized, like, this is what I want to do, is because I used to host parties out there, just like a side hustle, get people to like turn up. And they asked me, hey, can you like get all these people? There's probably about 400 or 500 people. And they're in the pool, and imagine a big tennis court, and there's some stairs. So I had to move everybody to the tennis court from the pool. And there's a video of it. I'll explain. So in order to get those people to move, I was like, can you play Blue Hunnits by Cool John? He's from the Bay Area, and it's a very famous song. To me, because I'm from the Bay, so I love it to twerk to. And so I asked them to play that, and I just go out there and I started twerking, and of course everybody's heads like turn, and they're like looking over at me, and then everybody moved, obviously. So I did my job. So they got across from the pool to the tennis court area, and it started recording. I didn't expect anything, I was just having fun, because I do this at every party, just turn up. And then I decided to do this new move that I've never tried before in public, because I would just practice in my room alone. And so I was twerking on my head, and then I pushed up from my head to a handstand, so like a little mini handstand push up, and then I started twerking to the splits. And one of those videos just went completely viral on the Instagram. Was called Do It for State. I don't know if you remember that.
I'm aware of it.
Now.
Yeah.
It's completely gone. I don't know why, but it used to be like a college.
Oh, I know
page.
why. We had one in Wisconsin called Full Send Wisconsin.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it was the same general idea of people are seeing people do outlandish things, so they were trying to one-up each other. So kids were doing stuff they weren't supposed to be doing. That's probably why.
It's just a bunch of college kids doing dumb stuff.
Right.
So I was so thankful to be on that page, and I just realized, like, I was in my ceramics class that day, and I was like, wow, like, this is just going views up, and I had 2,000 followers at the time. It's like 2019, and I was like, wow, this is, this could be really cool. I could keep doing this, but I was scared. I was like, I don't want to post on my page yet. I was nervous. Like I said, I used to teach Bible school. I had a lot of my friends on there, on my Instagram, family and friends from church. And I was like, I didn't think they would really like to see all that. So, but yeah, that's when I realized I was like super thankful for that, just being at the right time, at the right place. And I feel like it was meant to happen because, it just kind of like changed things for me. I was excited.
Yeah, it's when you get that first like big boost, right?
Yeah.
So like my moment, and I've said on the show before, was I got introduced to Wayne Hoffman, who's this like, he's like one of the biggest illusionists in the world in that particular thing. That's what he does. I got introduced to him by somebody, but I didn't really know him. And I showed up and was a little bit nervous driving up, thinking like, oh God, here we go. Like, hopefully this works out. This dude's super successful.
Yeah.
And like the interview went awesome. It was like one of my favorite ones. And I remember driving away and I was just like, I can just do this now. Like, sick, you know what I mean? But it was like when I had that I was like, okay, cool.
That's
now it's
so
like
dope.
Game on, you know what I mean?
I love to hear that. That's great.
So mistakes are how we learn, right? The most. And everyone makes a ton of mistakes. I try not to like beat myself down about it all the time, but we all make mistakes. That's the easiest way to learn. I actually had some problems with my computer on this trip, which was the frustrating part because I had already addressed those mistakes prior. Not right now, but I've had those problems.
Yeah.
What is the story that you can share of a mistake you made that taught you something that somebody listening might be able to benefit from?
Okay, so I've made a ton of mistakes, but to pick one in particular, I was actually performing in my hometown on tour with DaBaby, and it was the last tour date that I was at, so it was just really upsetting for me because, I'm finally in my hometown. I'm super excited to perform. I go out there, and it's not even Bop. It was actually a different song that I was up there for, and the song was Vibes, and that's probably one of my number one or number two favorite songs of his. So I go out there and he has me for the song, the set, because he's really talented. He has a bunch of different scenes for each of his songs. So I go out there and I'm doing the handstand, and DaBaby, he loves to throw water all over the stage. So I slipped on the water, and in the handstand, I stayed up there for a second too long. I knew I should have just came down, and I fell right in the front, right on the speaker, So it was super embarrassing. I was like, oh my gosh, I wish that didn't happen. But DaBaby, even you could see it, if you look it up, he could try to catch me, but it's okay. And I just felt so horrible about it because I was like, oh my gosh, I just messed up the whole thing, my one hands or whatever. I came back out later and did Bop, and I was fine, just to redeem myself, but I was supposed to do that anyway. But what I would say I definitely learned from it is that it wasn't that big of a deal, after my stressing about it, and I was super just heartbroken. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I just did that in front of everybody, in front of DaBaby, in front of all these people. That's so embarrassing. But in reality, he was just made sure I was okay, and he was just it's fine, it's not that big of a deal, not everybody's gonna see that, it's fine. But
yeah, well, you idolize people, and for some reason you think they're these gods because they perform so well. And then you think about it though from the outside, and you're like, this dude probably blew it some other time too. So he understands, and it's always yourself that beats you up, beats yourself up significantly more than somebody else. Usually
I was completely just beating myself up about it. I was like, there's no way, I only have one job and I messed it up. And so. But it's I got back out there and I still did it. So I think that's a big thing to do. Even though you mess up, you get back out there and do it again. I did it again, even in the water, because there's puddles all over the stage because he loves to throw water everywhere. And I still did it, and I was fine. I just have to, next time, be more prepared. So after that was my last tour date, and I just went really hard, and I started working out in the gym again, and just going hard because I was I will never have that happen to me again. And now I'm even back at that time, I want to say that was either I think December 2019, I couldn't even hold a handstand for a minute by myself without moving, without walking at all, not being able to catch yourself. And now I can hold it for longer than a minute just standing on my hands without moving a single hand,
Right.
So just a year in the gym just practicing and just being this is never going to happen to me again, just taking that self-accountability to just practice on what you love to do and just keep doing it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I completely agree. So now that we're on the end of the show, one more time, I want you to shout out where people can follow you, how they can best support you, and then tell us what else can we expect to see from you coming up.
Okay, so the best place to follow me would be Instagram and TikTok is at IAMCOURTNEYSANDERSON. And then my Snapchat and Twitter is going to be Courtney13_SA. I also have a YouTube channel. I'll be posting more on that now that I'm out here in LA. I'll have more time. So that's just Courtney Sanderson. If you look me up, I'll definitely have more videos. And then you guys can expect to see from me, I'm going to have more tour classes. I'm really excited. I will have more in Vegas. I'm going to do one in Chicago this month and LA. And then you guys can look out for my merch because I'm going to be dropping that as soon as it's ready. So I'm really excited. And then I will soon have an album. So I'm excited for that too, because I have a couple more twerk songs I can't wait to release and then twerk to my own song. So I'm really excited. That'll be really fun. But yeah.
Well, I can't wait to see all that stuff. I'm going to show all my friends when I get back home. I'm like, you know who I'm friends with now? This girl.
Thank you so much. It was really nice meeting you.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of The Passion Pod. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. We'll see you soon.